it's protecting the servers at your global headquarters, but it's also securing these doors on the highway and fortifying the infrastructure that tracks clouds, checking on these cows, guarding the identity of these kids, and authenticating each one of these containers sailing across the Pacific. It's down in the server room, up in the cloud, and embedded in the most extensive networks. Cybersecurity needs to live everywhere that your data does. That's why the world's best security experts partner with IBM Security. We work with you to understand your unique challenges. It's how we drive security into the fabric of your business, helping you unite your defenses and unlock innovation. Great ideas can come from anywhere, which is why you need security everywhere.
Hey everybody, Bob Kalka, Vice President for IBM Security. I want to take just a couple of minutes and walk you through the core tenets, the three core tenets of our strategy. You know, IBM Security has become the largest enterprise security provider in the globe. Over $3 billion business, over 9,500 cybersecurity professionals. And we've built that over the last 20 to 25 years through building the business organically and through acquisition. What I want to take you through is that we're noticing that there are three core tenets that almost every one of our clients wants to focus on, and hence we've built our strategy around that. The first tenet that they focus on is how do they actually handle their security strategy and risk. And when we talk about strategy and risk, what that really points at is the fact that cybersecurity programs are supposed to be focused on risk management. And yet what we see is the vast majority of programs are actually built more for compliance, which is a subset of risk management, right? And what's the difference? Compliance-based security programs are checkbox-based. You have an auditor comes in, they identify 13 things you have to do, and so you spend your time checking 13 boxes before the auditor comes back. What that inevitably leaves you to do, though, is to under-deploy your security tools. Let's say SIM, Security Information Event Management, for example. Do you have a SIM? If you don't, you're going to get a red mark on it. So everyone who knows this technology knows that it really takes 4 to 9 months, whatever, to properly tune a SIM around all the risks that you're focused on. And yet, most organizations, if you're just checking the box, will spend 3 to 4 weeks tuning it and then move on to the other 12 boxes, right? And say, oh, we'll come back to it, and generally they never do. So I like to say to CISOs, you can do risk management or career management, right? Because if you check all the boxes, you're going to pass the next audit, but you know you're not really focused on risk. So we help clients make that transformation to be more of a risk-focused program. Yet even when you do that well, and whether you're doing it or not, everybody runs into what we call the consumability challenge. And the consumability challenge is based on the fact that with over 1 million unfilled cyber jobs out there and all the challenges that we have, you can never get done all of the stuff. You can never consume all of the controls that you're supposed to be addressing in any program. So the way we help you approach that is through a simple to say formula. It's obviously harder to do, but that's how we've grown, is that the way you address this consumability challenge is through wisdom and horsepower. Right? Wisdom is based on talk to people that have done it before. There's a lot of people jumping into cyber because it pays well and it's a hot area, it's exciting. And some of them are giving advice that they don't really know. It just sounds like it makes sense, but 2 years down the road, you find out it was a very costly mistake. So out of our 9,500 people in IBM Security, roughly 6,000 actually are in consulting, managed services, professional services. So we've disproportionately invested on the wisdom side. And then on the horsepower side, the answer to the question of any cyber question is not buy 5 more products. What we've learned is how do you get more horsepower out of the engine that you have? And we found that there's 4 technology accelerators that help you do that. The first is, of course, the cloud. But when we say cloud security, people get lots of different ideas. I mean, you can have 10 people in a room and all 10 will think of something different and all 10 will be relevant. So we found it useful when we talk about cloud security to talk about the fact that there's really 3 kinds of cloud security: for, from, and in. Security for the cloud is you have a workload going out, Security for the cloud is, do I know what data is going to be resident or leveraged from that tool, from that workload? And is it protected is it encrypted before I send it out and all that stuff? That's security for the cloud. Security from the cloud says, why am I doing this on-prem? Why don't I just use one of the many security as a service capabilities out there where I'm probably getting some wisdom too, because the people running that for me are doing it for other people, so they know this stuff a lot better than my team probably could. So security from the cloud has been exploding for the last 3 or 4 years. And then the one that gets a lot of security organizations today is security in the cloud. What happens when a bulletin comes out and it says, not only do you need to patch your on-prem systems, but also reconfigure your Kubernetes clusters for your DevOps workloads? A lot of cyber teams don't even know what that means today, right? So being able to address security in the cloud is a huge topic, and something with our acquisition of Red Hat, we can do very well. The second accelerator is AI. It's leveraging technology to do something that human beings can't do, such as ingesting and digesting over 1 million sources of threat intelligence so you can make threat analysis decisions in seconds instead of days or weeks. That's an example and something that we do with our longtime investment in Watson. The third is orchestration. Orchestration means, and we have a simple model we like to think about at IBM Security, and that is left and right of boom. Right? A boom is a cyber event. Left of boom on the timeline is, what do you do for analytics to find out you're being attacked? Right of boom is, what do you do to fix it? And that's orchestration. So right of boom is a huge topic that the vast majority of organizations have underinvested in, and we can help you do that, automate it, and do it in ways that nobody else can do. And then finally, collaboration. We both make our threat intelligence available to you at no cost through our IBM X-Force Exchange. You can Google it, and Sticks and Taxi support. You can integrate it into your threat apps. And then we also collaborate through an app exchange, which we and our partners and even some competitors have written apps for, that allows us to extend the functionality of our capabilities. So that's the first element of our strategy. The second and third elements of our strategy are based on, first, how do you manage security in your shop? In other words, how do you do threat management? How do you run your SOC? And then the third element of our strategy is, how do you then leverage that to actually protect your business? Okay, so let me give you kind of the simplified view of what we see most people doing for these two topics. First of all, the way most people manage their SOC is through three phases, three modules. First is, you need to find the needles in the haystack, right? Look for the suspicious stuff. Everybody starts with logs. That's SIM, of course, and that's collect, normalize, correlate, report, and monitor. We see two problems. Most people have under-configured their SIM tools. And secondly, a lot of people feel like their SIM tool is all they need to do for finding the needles in the haystack. And that, of course, is not true at all. SIM is great, but it's like the maybe elementary or middle school security analytics, because it only looks at logs, which is things that have already happened. How do you look at what's happening right now? So where most people then migrate to is doing real-time flow analytics to look at real-time flow analysis on the network, and then going into user behavior analytics to then say, well, instead of 375 alerts, it'd be good to know that the actions of one person generated most of the activity. And then there's other layers beyond that, such as forensics, but for purposes of today, we'll just leave it at these. Most people are struggling just to tune that log thing. So what we help you do at IBM Security with our partners, as well as we help you grow in your maturity there. Then, how do you actually confirm that a needle in the haystack is sharp enough to take action on? Because that's the second phase here, which is, how do you confirm that that needle in the haystack needs action? In a risk-based program, you might have a misconfigured device, but if it doesn't generate any risk, it doesn't matter, right? You don't need to take action on it. So the way we did a informal study on this 2 years ago, and found that the way that the level 1 SOC analysts generally do this is they actually use this radical technique called manual Google search, or whatever their favorite search engine is. And because my X-Force researchers tell me that only roughly 20% of the world's threat intelligence is indexed and searchable, that means the most common practice for vetting that something suspicious is really a problem for me is manually searching through 20% of the data, right? There's two ways to do that a lot better. First is to migrate to what we call include investigative analysis. And that is where you bring in unstructured sources such as social media sentiment and phone call logs, even video feeds. And the ultimate form here is that you then leverage AI, such as the AI that I mentioned on the previous panel, which is something that we do with Watson, right? And so what we do here for you is also help you grow from the manual method most people use to actually automating and improving your maturity on these things. Then, once you find something and you confirm that you need to take action on, you get into the third phase that most shops have, which is fix. Remember I talked about orchestration, left and right of boom? Fixing is right of the boom. How do you actually fix stuff? The latest study I saw indicates that 74% of organizations do not have a well-defined up-to-date incident response plan, which means, I was a math minor in college, null set. It means they're making it up as they go. And it doesn't take a social scientist to figure out that when everybody's running around trying to figure out what happened and yelling at each other, that's the worst time to try to figure this out. So there's two layers of greater maturity that are eminently doable here. First is awareness. And what this means is getting the executives who are peers to the CISO to understand cyber is as much their job, especially during the time of right a boom, as everybody else. And that's where our cyber range comes into play. And then ultimately here, it's not only defining your incident response runbooks, but it's also automating those runbooks, right? That's the ultimate. So find, confirm, and fix is how most people run their SOCs and their security programs. And what we help you do at IBM is go beyond where most people get stuck, which I've indicated here, and help you get more mature on these things. Meanwhile, you also have to deal with how do you protect the business in a world that is going hybrid multi-cloud. And the most profound element here is the fact that the new perimeter that you have to worry about protecting is no longer just the network, of course. The new perimeter that you need to secure is actually anywhere and everywhere your sensitive data is. Let me say that again. The new perimeter is anywhere and everywhere your sensitive data is. And in a hybrid multi-cloud world, that's a lot of stuff spread all over the place. So that's where the whole zero trust concept comes from. It's gotten very popular for all the right reasons. So we've built what we call our digital trust portfolio to address those zero trust concepts that really, if I can give you a simplified view of what that really means, it is making sure that these four elements are working together effectively. First, make sure that only the right users can get only the right access to only the right data for only the right reason. That simple to say, but as you know, not trivial to do, making sure that only the right users have only the right access to only the right data for only the right reason is how you implement those zero trust concepts. And we have been focused on that extensively. What we have found is that clients are disproportionately investing in about 12 risk management controls that actually allow you to do these things. So I'm just going to summarize them for you here. 12 of them right now that are getting disproportionate investment. Because it's very important to understand these. The first one for user security is identity governance. Do you know who has access to what? Second is identity analytics. Can you do proactive analytics on the user definitions that are out there and find pockets of, say, under-configured users? Third, of course, is privileged account management, as always, right, of how do I handle the insider stuff. For access control, first there's access management, of course, and then the real hot one these days, which is called adaptive authentication. Adaptive authentication is based on the concept that you might want to do step up or step down authentication, maybe all the way to what's called frictionless authentication today, based on a risk profile. Let's say you're authenticated here and here, and this system trusts these two systems. Why would you ask them to authenticate at all, right? So that's where you get into a frictionless authentication kind of thing. So those two controls are getting a huge investment. For data security, you have, of course, encryption, which is protecting the data. You have discovery and classification if you don't know where the data is. How can you secure it? And I just saw a study that said only 7% of organizations are confident they know where all their sensitive data is in a hybrid multi-cloud environment. That's not good, right? There's then data and file activity monitoring, which is how you lock down that data. And then there, of course, is a control that nobody cared about a couple of years ago in most conversations. And as soon as you go hybrid multi-cloud, everybody cares about it. And it is, how do you do key management for your encryption keys, right? Bring your own key, keep your own key, stuff like that. Now, what about right reason? The first thing is that a lot of times you want to be able to see if data is being misused. So we call this data risk insights, and it is the ability to look at how data is being used and find sketchy behavior. Second is the look in transactions, and that's looking for fraudulent transaction activity. And then third, the worst reason to be breached is the most common reason why everybody is, and that is poor misconfigured devices and stuff, right? So we list configuration and management as a control here because it's the wrong reason to be breached, but it's still number one, right? So what we help our clients do is, first, on threat management, we help you do find, confirm, and fix better and more mature. You leveraging those accelerators I mentioned of, once again, cloud, AI, orchestration, collaboration. And then we help you protect the business through implementing zero trust concepts, especially by focusing on these controls that I just mentioned that are getting a disproportionate investment. So our portfolio that does these things are very well known. We are literally in the leadership quadrant of virtually every Magic Quadrant that exists for the things that we do, and look it up. We really are. We're very proud of this in a lowercase p pride, right? It should never be proud with a capital P as a cyber professional, because we all know we're just one unseen backdoor away from looking silly. But we have our QRadar platform here for doing all those elements of find, market leader, unquestionably. For confirming, we have our I2 acquisition that helps us do investigative analysis. And then, of course, our QRadar and Watson capability to leverage this massive pool of over 1 million sources of threat intelligence, which literally grows every day. For awareness for your peers, we have our cyber ranges, both in Boston and then on an 18-wheeler that travels around Europe. And then we have our Resilient acquisition that helps you automate, define and automate your incident response playbooks, et cetera. For identity governance, we have our IGI solution, which allows you to actually do identity governance and intelligence. For both identity analytics and adaptive authentication, we have our incredible cloud identity solution. It's a platform that allows you to do all this stuff. Incredible. For privileged account management, we have Secret Server, which we work with Dichotic on, which is well known as the simplest yet most powerful tool out there. For access management, it is our access management product. For encryption, it is both our Guardium solution as well as our Z platform. We're on System Z, of course. Encryption is now built into the platform. For discovery and classification, it's Guardium. For data and file activity monitoring, it's Guardium. And then finally, for key management, it is our SKLM, Security Key Lifecycle Manager solution. For data risk insights, it's an incredible new tool called Guardium Insights, which is born in the cloud. It runs on OpenShift on top of Kubernetes and allows you to look at how the data is being used. For fraud, it is our Trusteer solution, which is well known as unquestionably the leader of that space, especially in banking. And then for configuration and management, it's our Mass 360 capability. Now, however, all of this is what we've built our business on. But the most important thing that we can help you do right now addresses one of the biggest problems we see, and that is around how do you modernize your security program, because the business around you is modernizing, going to agile DevOps, et cetera. And I'd observe to you, our biggest problem that we're seeing is that the average speed of digital transformation of a security team is usually a lot slower than the speed of digital transformation of the business around it. And needless to say, that's a huge problem going forward, because if the security teams are falling behind and leaving it to the DevOps teams to make all their own security decisions, right? then the problems are pretty obvious there. So we started about 2.5 years ago looking at this, of how our security organizations and teams and infrastructure are going to have to modernize. And we very quickly realized that there was a critical missing step. And that missing step is because when you go to a hybrid multi-cloud, you cannot do what the find, confirm, fix model assumes, which is that you can get every source of cyber that you need to analyze into whatever your core tool is. Whether it's QRadar or one of the others out there, nobody can do that in a hybrid multi-cloud environment, because as soon as you deploy workloads into multiple cloud services, you have security relevant data being generated in those cloud services. And you may not even be fully aware of some of them. So what we found is the critical missing step here, and it is called federation. In other words, how do you do federated search and investigation across multiple federated cyber data pools? So for example, can you connect to QRadar and Splunk and Guardium and AWS and Azure and Google Cloud and IBM Cloud and do a federated search and investigation? I know that sounds radical, but we are now shipping this. We've been working on it for several years. We're first of a kind in the industry. And we've written it cloud native, so it runs on top of Red Hat OpenShift. One of those great benefits of us acquiring Red Hat is that we are able to accelerate a lot of this stuff. And so the way we deliver this to you is this combination of this first of a kind federated search and investigation, combined with the ability to then fix what you find with our resilient capability, we call our Cloud Pak for Security. And Cloud Pak for Security, first of a kind, right? Running on top of OpenShift, so it's containers, Kubernetes, et cetera. It's the ability to do federated search and investigation and fix what you find. And because we're able to do such aggressive integration with the Red Hat team, we've already integrated this with Red Hat Ansible. And of course, the benefit of that is probably apparent to a bunch of you from the get-go. Let's say you have a run book that requires you to respond to a breach by patching on-prem systems and reconfiguring Kubernetes, right? Reconfiguring the Kubernetes clusters. With Ansible, it can do all that. And it's integrated with Resilient. So as a result, we can do a federated search and investigation, kick off a run book, direct it, and then have Ansible to actually change the environment. Absolutely brilliant. And what you're going to see from us over time is more and more of our innovations are going to come into this Cloud Pak for Security platform. So the walls of this will expand over time. And so once again, not only do we help you do strategy and risk, getting focused on a risk management transformation better than anyone through wisdom and horsepower, help you do threat management better through find, confirm, fix, and now federate, and help you protect the business through the zero trust concepts of user access, data, reason. But now we can help you do this and at the same time modernize how you're growing and modernizing your cyber platform to help the rest of the digitally transforming business transform even faster. Thanks so much for your time.